Hi, my name is Ariela Davis. I'm an Israel educator, and I'm the coordinator for policy and international communities at Habithonistim. I'm standing here at Har Herzl today, and we had the idea to tell you a little bit about some of Israel's fallen soldiers. Personally, I made Aliyah 8 months ago from the United States, and every year I would bring my students to this place on Yom HaZikaron, to Har Herzl, to tell all of our students about the fallen soldiers. Today I brought my family here for the first time. My children have never been to Har Herzl before. And the reason we brought them here is because how can one possibly enjoy living in Eretz Israel, visiting Eretz Israel, without knowing the stories of those who gave their lives so that we can be here? And so I want to share a few stories today with you, some well-known, some not as well-known, about some of Israel's fallen soldiers. The first one I want to speak about is one that I'd never visited until today, a story that is very famous, but only until now was I able to visit his kever, his grave. The story of Zachary Baumel, Zachary Baumel. Zachary Baumel was born in America in Brooklyn in 1960. He made Aliyah 10 years later to Kiryat Motzkin near Haifa, where actually Rabbi Lau lived as well when he first came here. And Zachary Baumel, he went to school in Pardes Chana, and then he joined the Israeli army at Yeshivat Har Herzl at their Hesder program. And he served there in the tanks, during the first Lebanon war in 1982, he was fighting in Lebanon. He was in a tank with several other soldiers. They were attacked and they left those tanks, and no one really knew what happened to them. For many, many years, Zachary Baumel was considered an MIA, a soldier who was missing in action. I remember when I was in high school, I went to SKA, so Zachary Baumel's father, Yonah Baumel, came to speak to us, and he told us that his son had been missing in action for many years. And he said it is so difficult to be able to go to sleep at night and not know, is your child alive? Is your child dead? Is your child hungry? Is he being tortured? What is the story with your child? And so Yonah Baumel went all across the world to all different governments to try to beseech anyone who could possibly help him to get information about his son. Prime Minister Netanyahu remembers sitting with Yonah Baumel as he said to him, with tears in his eyes, the only thing I have to live for, the only thing I try to achieve is to try to find information about my son Zachariah, that I should know what happened to him. Unfortunately, Yonah Baumel's wish did not come true. He passed away in 2009 not knowing what happened to his son Zachary, to his son Zachariah. In 2019, April 2019, with the help of Putin, his body was located, his remains and his tzitzis were brought to Har Herzl, and he was buried here, his final resting place. And today, after 37 years of being an MIA, we can visit the kever of Zachary Baumel. And that was a tremendous zchut, a tremendous merit I had today to see his kever, and that was something we wanted to bring to all of you. I'd like to speak about someone else right now, a different chayal who was fallen, also an American. His name was Michael Levin, and for him, the Lone Soldier Center is named. Who is Michael Levin? Michael Levin is from Philadelphia, and he had a tremendous love for Eretz Israel. He went to Camp Ramah, and there he was enthused with Zionism. He was known as being a tremendous Zionist who all he wanted to do was make Aliyah and serve in the IDF. And so he did. He made Aliyah in 2002, and he joined the paratroopers, which was his great dream. But how did he join the paratroopers? How was he able to do that? So the story goes as follows, and I heard his parents tell this story during a Yom HaZikaron ceremony that I was here for. He arrived at the center, at the Giyus center, where one enlists in the Israeli army. And they said to him, where's your petzek? Where's your list that you're ready to enlist? And he said, I never got it. I told them I want to enlist in the Israeli army, but I never got that petzek. And they said to him, well, you have to come back after you get your petzek. Now that I've made Aliyah, I understand the story a little bit more. Israeli bureaucracy isn't always smooth, and he's waiting and waiting for this petzek, for this note to come that will enable him to enlist, and he's not getting it. And he's getting impatient. I want to serve in the Israeli army. So he went back to the office. And he realized he was not going to get through that front door without that petzek, without that paper that would enable him to enlist. So he saw there was a tree that was right next to the office. And he climbed the tree, and from climbing the tree, climbed through a bathroom upstairs. And through the bathroom, he went to the next office. And they said to him, where's your petzek? Where is your note that would show that you're able to enlist? And he said, I don't have that. And they said, it's impossible. You can't get through the front door unless you have that petzek. And he said to them, what makes you think I got through the front door? And when they realized how badly he wanted to join the Israeli army, they said, okay, you can get in without that petzek. And he served valiantly. He was known to be a soldier who was always smiling, who had a tremendous love and enthusiasm for Israel. in 2006, during the Second Lebanon War, Michael Levin had gone back to visit his family on leave, and he heard that his pluga, his platoon, was fighting in Lebanon, and he said, how can they possibly fight without me? How can I possibly allow them to fight without me? And he flew back to Israel, and he fought with them, and there he fell. And as the story goes, and again, I've heard his parents tell the story, and last year or 2 years ago on Yom HaZikaron, when I was here, we actually saw his parents by his grave. And his parents tell the following story. They came to Israel for the funeral of their son. He was raised in Philadelphia. They figured, who knows him? He's a lone soldier. Who could possibly know him? They were nervous. They would even have a minyan for his funeral. And as they get there, they're seeing so many cars and so many people, and they're wondering, oh, there must be another funeral today. You know, we're going to be so embarrassed. We have such a small funeral next to this other person. And as they're getting closer to the place where he's about to be buried, they're hearing everybody mention his name. And they realize that Israelis who knew him and Israelis who didn't know him all came out to show their support for this enthusiastic teenager from America who had given his life to serve the Israeli army. And that is the story of Michael Levin. Let's go on. Let's tell some more stories. I want to tell the story of Roi Klein, who served quite a bit beforehand. Roi Klein was born in Ra'anana. He was the children of Holocaust survivors. He served as a major in Golani, and he was a bit older. He lived in Eli, and he had a wife and 2 children. In 2005, also during the Second Lebanon War, a hand grenade was thrown at his pluga from Hezbollah, from the terrorist organization of Hezbollah. And Roi Klein knew that if that grenade would explode near his pluga, he knew that many people would be injured or worse. And without taking the time to think about it, Roi Klein made the split-second decision to jump on that grenade, absorbing the impact of the grenade, killing him. But before he died, those who were present described that moment. They said it was as if time stood still as he screamed out, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the tefillah that we say with our children at night, the tefillah that we say before a baby has his bris, the tefillah we say before a person passes away. That was what Roi Klein said right before he died, right before he saved his entire platoon. He too is buried here, leaving a widow and 2 children. The last story I want to tell about Chayalim before I move to victims of terror are the stories of the Peretz boys, Uriel and Eliraz Peretz. Their mother, Miriam Peretz, speaks extensively about them, and I'm holding her book in my hand, Miriam's Song, which is a book that everyone should read. It is such a powerful book, telling the story about how she came to Israel as a Moroccan immigrant and about the great sacrifice that her family made, losing 2 soldiers for the Israeli army. Uriel Peretz died when he was 22 years old in 1998. He had a great dream of serving in the Golani Brigade, and Uriel Peretz was of small stature, and everyone told him, you're not going to be able to serve in Golani, impossible, you don't have the stature for it. But he used to tell his brothers, beat me up, because that way I'll be stronger, I'll get those muscles. I want to serve the Israeli army. He went to a pre-military program as a high school youth because it was so important to him to serve in the Israeli army, and indeed he fulfilled his dream, and he was known to be an amazing soldier. They called him the king because he would do anything for anybody in the Israeli army. And his mother, Miriam, a Moroccan woman, she used to do his laundry, and she would take out so many thorns out of his socks. And as she would take out those thorns, she would think, oh, my poor Uriel, he's walking everywhere, he's getting these thorns in his socks. And they later found the following that Uriel wrote, and I took out the quote because I think it is so beautiful. He said as follows, with all the thorns and barbs that have scratched my body, you could put together a 3-foot hedge. But these aren't just ordinary thorns. They're the thorns from the land of Israel. Uriel Peretz loved the lands of Israel. He fell for the land of Israel in 1998 in Lebanon. But their story continues. Miriam says her husband Eliezer passed away from a broken heart after losing their son Uriel. They did memorials all across the country, and everybody became familiar with the Peretz family after the death of Uriel. Her younger son, her next son Eliraz, also had a dream of serving in the Israeli army. But there was a patur, there's an exemption for someone who lost already, a family member who already lost a soldier in their family. And they said to Eliraz, if you're going to serve, your parents have to, or at that point it was his mother, has to sign on that it's okay with her because she already lost an Israeli soldier, and we don't want a family to lose 2. And Eliraz came to his mother and he said to her, I really, really want to serve. I know Uriel would have wanted me to serve. It is so important to me to continue to serve, not just as a soldier, but as an officer in the army. And so Eliraz continued on. His mother was willing, with great trepidation and fear. She allowed Eliraz to continue serving in the Israeli army. Eliraz got married. He had 4 children. He too lived in Eli, just like Roi Klein. And in 2010, while serving in Gaza, Eliraz was also killed, serving in the Israeli army. Their mother, Uriel and Peretz, today goes around, she wrote this book, but she goes all around Israel and really all across the world, talking about, despite the great sacrifice of their family, the idea of choosing life, of choosing hope, of seeing good in the world, and the love that we continue to have for Eretz Yisrael. These are the stories of some of the fallen soldiers that we remember today on Yom HaZikaron. Har Herzl is full of graves of people who died too young, making the ultimate sacrifice. I want to share one more story today, and this is not of a fallen soldier. But on Yom HaZikaron, we don't just remember the fallen soldiers, we also remember the victims of terror, and unfortunately, there have been too many. And I want to share my personal connection that I have with a victim of terror. And when I go to this wall, this is the name that I look for. There are many names that we recognize, many names that I point to, but this is one name that really speaks to me. I'm from New York. I went to the Hebrew Academy of Long Beach. When I was in 8th grade, like so many other students at the Hebrew Academy of Long Beach, I had a teacher, Shoshana Hayman. Shoshana Hayman was an excellent teacher. She was someone who really enthused us with Torah learning, and we all loved her very much. And all of us anxiously, as young girls do, waited for her to get married. When I had her, so she was a little bit younger. When my sister had her many years later, she was quite a bit older. I think she was 29, 30 at that point, and she was still not married. And everybody was waiting, when is Mora Hayman going to get married, like all the other young teachers? And it came the day Mora Hayman got engaged, and anybody she had ever taught was so excited. And I remember the summer of 2001, I was in Israel in a summer program, and a girl who was in my apartment who had also gone to Hebrew Academy of Long Beach had just seen Mora Hayman, and she said, I think she's pregnant. And we were so excited. Finally, she was 31 years old. Finally, she's about to start that long-awaited dream. I came home from my summer program. I'll never forget. It was August 2001. I was with a friend of mine, and a friend I had gone to Halb with called me, and she said, you know the terrorist attack that was today? And I said, yes, there was a horrible terrorist attack that day in Sparrow's Pizza Store in Jerusalem. Everybody was talking about it. It was unfathomable because I had just been in Jerusalem and everybody always went to Sparrow's. Everyone was always walking around there. And it was all anybody was thinking about. And she said Mora Hayman was one of the victims. And I said, that's not possible. I've heard all the names of the victims. There was one American who was killed, Uriel Greenbaum. That's not Shoshana Hayman. And she said to me, look it up. And I looked it up. She had been on a program, actually the same program that I went to at Israeli Graduate School. She was here for a summer program. She had gone in to get pizza, and the terrorist walked in and he killed her, among many others at Sparrow's. And any student of Mora Hayman always thinks about how much she gave us. How many teachers today, including myself, are teachers because of what Mora Hayman taught us throughout her years teaching. And so today on Yom HaZikaron, we remember Mora Hayman. We remember all of the people who were killed, victims of terror, all those who gave their life so that we can live here and enjoy here, Eretz Yisrael.